Our scripture today comes from the Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus came to the neighborhood of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples this question: "What do people say about who the chosen one is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptizer, others say Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "And you," he said, "who do you say that I am?" "You are the Messiah," Simon Peter answered, "the firstborn of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon Ben-Jonah. No mere mortal has revealed this to you, but my heavenly parent in heaven. I also tell you this, your name is now Rock, and on bedrock like this I will build my community, and the jaws of death will not prevail against it. Here, I give you the keys to the reign of heaven. Whatever you declare bound on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you declare loosed on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then Jesus strictly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Ancient words from our tradition for our present day understanding.
Well, it's good to be back. It's good to see you all. I still have a job, apparently, so that's good. That's good. Not in jail. That's good. Very good. Yeah. Yeah, why not? It's a good question. So is the heckling over? Because I like to start the... I thought y'all would grow up while I was gone, but apparently... So, that would be boring if you didn't. Well, I thought it'd be fun to do a series on the Gospel of Thomas, which is a book that didn't make it into the New Testament, but I think is really helpful in understanding the beginnings of Christianity. What happens, I think, in the United States and in Europe is that a European view of Christianity is all that you learn, and you don't realize that much of the symbolism is coming from cultures like in Egypt, in Persia, in India, all over the world. There's an attempt to understand profoundly what it means to be human in the cosmos. I'm not going to be speaking directly about the shootings, but I think the kind of violent insanity that has seized this nation is a result of people who don't know who they are and don't understand their connectedness to nature and to life. And so they have to fill in that void with wealth at any cost and protect themselves with violence, which is close to suicidal at this point. If you were God, can you imagine how it would feel to have Republican legislators who have filled our streets with guns pray to you as though you had done that and ask you to change that? I think it's fine to be conservative, but if you're not distancing yourself from this violence and this scapegoating and this hatred, then you are a part of it at this point. I mean, we got a lot of problems on the Democratic side too, that some house cleaning needs to be done across the board. But all of us have to speak up against the scapegoating of the stranger, of the other. This is our time in history to do that. Right? If we said that we would stand up for Frank, this is the time to do that for other people. Okay, so anyway, back to the sermon. In the ancient world, there were what we call the mystery religions. And I think Christianity was heavily influenced by the mystery religions. And you see signs of that everywhere if you know what to look for. If you've only learned the European version of Christianity, that may not be visible to you. But in these ancient religions, they were preparing somebody to understand what it means to be human. And it took years to do this. And one of the things they would do was have rituals in a cave. And One of the signs that was sometimes in the caves is first know thyself. Coming from the wisdom tradition, that if we don't know what it means to be human, nothing else is going to fill in that void. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how accomplished you are, how successful you are. If you don't know who you are as a human being, there will be an empty spot inside of you. And the problem with this culture, one of the problems in this culture, lots of problems in this culture, but before you're even in the cradle, people have prepared boxes for you to fit in. Right? As soon as somebody's pregnant, somebody's going to ask, is it a boy or a girl? That's a box, right? Then you're baptized in the church. You didn't volunteer to do that. All of a sudden you have a flavor religiously. That's a box. You're asked who you're going to marry. That's a track that can be problematic. What you're going to be when you grow up. So before you're even able to think for yourself, you've got burdens placed on you and a false sense of who you really are. And it's almost like you're playing trick or treat every day of your life. And nobody has taught you that there's somebody underneath that mask of what other people have told you you are. So the teachings of a teacher of compassion like Jesus are not based on filling your head with answers, but leading you to the questions your heart is truly asking. Who am I? Why am I here? What are the answers to that question? Who am I? That would sustain your heart and fulfill you. They're not just the social answers. You're asking a question that's deeper than that. Something that's profound. What are your roots into life itself, into nature itself? I sometimes think of parrots, and I don't think they sing songs like songbirds do, but when you're taught Polly wants a cracker, that's got to be substituting for something that's more basic to the parrot. What is the parrot's song? And I think as human beings, we may live, breathe, die, and never be permitted to ask that question. I know in my confirmation class, that question wasn't asked. They had answers to all the questions I wasn't asking. Right? And they said, what's the purpose of a human being? Has anybody here been through confirmation class? But no, love God, enjoy God forever. Worship God, enjoy God forever, that kind of thing. Now, I don't know, but if your parents said that to you, if you said, why did you conceive me? Why did you bring me into the world? He said, I just wanted you to praise me. I'm just real insecure, and so I brought you into the world so you could sit there and just praise me. Praise Daddy, praise Mommy. There's something wrong with that, right? And no loving teacher like Jesus would stop there. So when you look at Jesus, it's maddening because there aren't answers. They're parables, they're riddles. Jesus is bringing you to the deepest place of your heart, which is what you're looking for. Now, the translation we're looking at today for our scripture is about as bad a translation as it gets. It's about as far away from the original symbol as it can possibly get. It's translated the chosen one. The original sexist term is the Son of Man, and that's what you're going to see in most translations. We translate that the human one. Now what that means is that Jesus is expressing himself at the lowest human level, at the most common human level. As the human one is described, it's like they're not handsome or pretty to look at. They're not rich, they're not successful, they're not famous. It's your generic humanity. And if you don't know the worth of that, if you don't realize that you are a light shining out of the darkness, that your human consciousness is itself a miracle. If you don't realize you are light shining out of the darkness, then you're going to need something to fill that void of value, of worth, of purpose. So Jesus is going to reveal not just who God is, but who we are. I mean, to me, it's off-putting to think that Jesus came to talk about himself. Right? It could have sent like a CD or something for us to listen to. Write a book or something like that. I'm so great, I'm so wonderful. Grovel before me. Jesus came to teach us who we are. And I want to tell you that answering the question, who am I, is one of the greatest gifts you can give the world today. Feeling your roots into nature, into life, feeling the interconnectedness of other human beings and other species is an incredible gift. And so when you ask the question, you're not being selfish and self-absorbed. Jesus wasn't selfish. He went deeply inside himself to find the common life, and is trying to help us do that from the inside out. An average teacher gives you answers to the question, who am I? They say, you're this, you're that. Those aren't the answers that you're seeking. Religion doesn't give you any answers. Religion is the question, who am I? What is the purpose of life? So a great teacher of love like Jesus will lead you deeper into your questions, and then living out of those questions will give you the answer. In the case of the human one, it's opening up and realizing that what Jesus is talking about is not just Christians or just Presbyterians. What is true for everyone, everywhere, all the time. That's what this human one is trying to reveal to us. But the focus is on the questions, living out the questions, not trying to be satisfied with answers. Again, because what Jesus is trying to give us is something that has to be lived from the inside out. It's not like a parrot learning a song or some kind of phrase. It has to come from the heart authentically. Now, this is the traditional scripture of Peter is a little bit problematic in that you're told, he says, who is this chosen one? And Peter says, you're the Messiah, according to this translation. And then Jesus says, you're the rock that I'll build the church on. So it's all about the church. Religion has imploded when it becomes an end in itself. That's not where Matthew is trying to end this story. And that'll be more visible in a second. But the punchline of this story is not, okay, Peter, you figured out I'm the Messiah, so now you're the Pope. You know, there's your hat over there, your red shoes over there. I'm going to build everything around you. Let's listen to the Gospel of Thomas, which I think is some of the earliest writings from the church. And it sounds much more like the early church that you read about before everything was formalized. Jesus said to his disciples, compare me, tell me who I'm like. Simon Peter said to him, now in this one, Peter doesn't get it right. Like in all of these mystery religions, whoever their teacher is the right one. Right? So this is the Gospel of Thomas, so guess who's going to be the smart one? Okay, so let's see, Peter answers and says, you're like a righteous angel. So, incorrect answer. Matthew says to him, you are like a wise philosopher. Wrong. Okay, Thomas steps forward. Master, my mouth is wholly incapable of saying whom you are. Jesus said, I am not your master, for you have drunk and become drunk from the bubbling spring which I have caused to gush forth. Now, what I hear that saying is, because Thomas is not trying to put Jesus in a box, and he recognizes the mystery that's in front of him, he's understood. But he's no longer just a student, not just a disciple. Right? He's drunk from the depths, the fountain from which we come. See, in many traditional forms of Christianity, you don't ever get to grow up. Right? God is the parent for your whole life. And you never learn to take responsibility for your life. You never learn to think for yourself, to feel what you really feel. You don't feel the permission to do that. This Jesus is saying that's the point. That I wasn't talking about myself, ever. If you look at it, Jesus, in the traditional symbolism, he's saying, it's not about me. It's through me. I'm a way, I'm a path, I'm a gate. Come through me to get to this. And even in the traditional versions, it says, I no longer call you students, I call you friends. But you don't see that when you've only heard the European version of Christianity, where God is a king, and it's like a big medieval castle, and everything looks like England and sounds like England. Have you ever wondered why the churches look like castles? And why that sounds more religious, seems more religious, and then Old English, like King James Version, sounds more religious? It's because that's when the religion died. That's when it stopped leading people to the source and became a substitute for the awakening. So this is leading us to exactly what we're looking for in life. What is the fountain out of which I'm flowing? What is the depths of which I'm an expression? There are types of Hinduism that only ask the question, who am I? That's the whole technique. But you get past the ego, you get past the self, and the teacher's saying, no, it's not that, no, it's not that, no, it's not that, until you get to pure awareness. And when that's okay, when it's okay for you to be generically human and authentically who you are, you're home. You're there. So a lot of the mystical religion looks like it's really negative. It's not this, it's not that. Don't do this, don't do that. It's stripping away everything that's keeping you from who you really are. Everything it's getting rid of is artificial. None of it's you. But in every case, all of these stories, one of the punchlines is, don't tell anybody this. Now see, that's before traditional Christianity. Right, because traditional Christianity is go tell it on the mountain, cram it down your friends' throats, go take this thing out. Don't tell anybody until they're ready for it. Because what you're doing in this type of Christianity is helping each other. We are helping each other give birth to who we truly are. And that takes community. It takes symbols. It takes rituals. The ego can't do this because the ego doesn't want to find its source. The ego wants to be the center of everything. So a lot of what the symboling system does is killing Jesus so Christ can be born. Killing the particular so the universal can be born. And Jesus is doing this on your behalf, leading you to your own heart. What an incredible thing. I think I've always leaned more towards Eastern religion than Western. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. Very typical Presbyterian thing. What happened to me was when I was, I think still in high school, maybe right after that, I was with the band and we'd played somewhere. Coming back, I got hit, I think by a drunk driver from the back, totaled the car, and I got hit by something, and I had amnesia. Now, that should be a bad thing, right? But it was incredibly euphoric. I couldn't remember where I lived. I couldn't remember where I had to go. I had no burdens, no problems. And I realized that's what the parables are leading to. That peaceful, blissful sense of being interconnected, but not being terrified by anything. I sometimes get stress dreams. Not a lot. They're always like, I've parked someplace and I forgot to check where, so I have to walk block by block to find my car again. I used to have a stress dream all the time about when I wore a robe, where I would be like supposed to be at a funeral, and I don't have my robe. So I have to run home, find the robe, but I can't find the robe. It's, I mean, my office is immaculate, but sometimes I can't find things. So then I find the robe, rush to the funeral, and the building is changed. Right? I can't find the entrance to the funeral. I can hear the music. I know what's going on. I know I'm in trouble already, but I can't find the way in. And what always would happen with the stress dream is I'd wake up and say, okay, make a note. I need to find that car. I need to get my robe, something like that. And then I realize, just relax. No, it was a dream. I've known people that died that way, where they had so many problems and so many things that bothered them. And as they were dying, they realized there's nothing I have to do about it. That's not my problem, right? If something's not right, that's not my problem anymore. And the last part of their life can be the most blissful, peaceful, relaxing part of the whole life. But what Jesus is asking is, why wait till you die to do that? Right? We can kill the ego now by stopping identifying with it, by identifying with what we are more profoundly and more deeply, and living out of that. If you want to commit suicide, kill your ego, don't kill your life. Don't hurt. Your body gives you joy as well as sorrow. It's the ego that binds you to all of these different problems and things. So what our lesson today is asking the question, who am I? Who are you? As a question we live out the rest of our lives that brings us back to who we truly are. You were born into boxes not of your own making. You were born into stories and expectations you had nothing to do with. And maybe you've never felt permission to put those masks aside and realize who you really are. But imagine the bliss, the joy, the peace that would come from living out of that spot. Of looking at the world through your real eyes. Of speaking authentically, right or wrong, from your own truth. And most beautifully, I think, of learning to sing the song of your true human heart. I want to close with a reading from a mystic, Kabir. Which is talking about this looking for your source and not realizing that you're coming out of the source. Not realizing you're emerging from that which you're searching for as though you were lost. And he goes, I laugh when I hear that the fish in the water is thirsty. You don't grasp the fact that what is most alive of all is inside your own house. And you walk from one holy city to the next with a confused look. Kabir will tell you the truth. Go wherever you like, to Calcutta or Tibet. If you can't find where your soul is hidden, for you the world will never be real. The guest is inside you, and also inside me. You know the sprout is hidden inside the seed. I invite you now to your own reflection on these words.